In the vibrant streets of Lagos, Nigeria, where hawkers sang their wares and yellow buses weaved through impossible traffic, there lived a woman whose beauty was matched only by her kindness. Her name was Chioma, and from the moment she took her first breath in the crowded maternity ward of Lagos Island General Hospital, she seemed destined for something remarkable. Chioma grew up in Surulere, in a cramped two-bedroom apartment that somehow housed her parents and 5 siblings. Money was always tight, luxuries were non-existent, but love was abundant. Her mother, a petty trader who sold tomatoes and peppers at Oyingbo Market, would often return home with bleeding feet and an empty purse, yet she always found a way to make her children smile. From her earliest days, Chioma was different. While other children fought over the last piece of meat in the soup, she would quietly give hers away. When her siblings argued over whose turn it was to fetch water from the communal tap, Chioma would simply pick up all the buckets and go herself. Her mother would watch her with wonder and worry in equal measure. "This child is too good for this wicked world," Mom Nkechi would say, shaking her head. But Chioma's goodness wasn't weakness. It was strength wrapped in gentleness, determination clothed in humility. She excelled in school despite studying under candlelight, because there was rarely money for electricity. She tutored her younger siblings even when exhaustion made her bones ache. And when it came time for university and her father said there was no money, Chioma didn't cry or complain. Instead, she applied for every scholarship she could find. God must have been watching, because she won one. A full scholarship to study nursing at the University of Lagos. The day the letter arrived, the entire compound celebrated. Neighbors who barely had enough for themselves contributed money for her acceptance fees. Chioma wept with gratitude and made a promise to herself. She would succeed not just for herself, but for everyone who had believed in her. University was hard. While other students partied and lived carefree lives funded by wealthy parents, Chioma worked. She tutored children after classes, braided hair on weekends, sold recharge cards between lectures. Every kobo she earned, she sent home to help her younger siblings. Still, she graduated top of her class, her nursing certificate a testament to years of sacrifice and determination. At 26, with her certificate still crisp and new, Chioma's life took a turn she never expected. She met him at her cousin's wedding in Lekki. His name was Emeka, and he was everything she had secretly dreamed of but never dared to hope for. Tall, handsome, with a smile that could light up the darkest room and eyes that seemed to see straight into her soul. Emeka was an architect with his own firm. He drove a Toyota Camry, lived in his own flat in Ikeja, and wore suits that fit him like they were painted on. But what drew Chioma to him wasn't his success or his looks. It was the way he treated people, the way he spoke respectfully to the waiters, the way he helped an old woman cross the street without being asked, the way he listened when she talked, really listened, like her words were precious. Their courtship was a whirlwind of stolen moments and growing love. Emeka would pick her up after her shifts at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, bringing her favorite suya and zobo. They would sit in his car, talking for hours about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. He made her laugh until her stomach hurt. He held her when she cried about difficult cases at the hospital. He made her feel safe in a way she never had before. When he proposed, 6 months after they met, Chioma said yes without hesitation. The wedding was modest by Lagos standards, but beautiful. Her mother cried through the entire ceremony. Her father, a man of few words, pulled Emeka aside and said simply, "That is my treasure you're taking. Guard her well." "With my life, sir," Emeka promised. Their first home was a neat 2-bedroom flat in Agba. It wasn't fancy, but Chioma decorated it with love and care, choosing bright fabrics for curtains, arranging and rearranging their few pieces of furniture until everything felt perfect. This was her home, her sanctuary, the place where she and Emeka would build their life together. When she got pregnant 3 months after the wedding, Emeka was beside himself with joy. He would talk to her growing belly every night, singing off-key lullabies that made Chioma dissolve into giggles. He read every pregnancy book he could find, attended every antenatal appointment, drove her crazy with his overprotectiveness. Their daughter, Adiz, arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning after 14 hours of labor. The moment they placed her in Chioma's arms, something shifted in the universe. This tiny, wrinkled, perfect human was hers. Hers to love, to protect, to nurture. Chioma looked at Emeka, who was crying unashamedly, and felt a happiness so profound it was almost painful. 14 months later, their son Chinedu completed their family. A robust, loud baby who seemed determined to make his presence known from day one. With two small children, their flat felt smaller, their budget tighter, but their love only grew. Emeka's architecture firm was doing well. Chioma had returned to work, juggling 12-hour shifts with motherhood. It was exhausting, often overwhelming, but it was theirs and it was beautiful. They had plans, dreams. Emeka was saving to buy land in Lekki where they would build their dream home. Chioma was studying for an advanced certification that would increase her salary. They talked about private schools for the children, family vacations, a better life than either of them had growing up. And then, on an ordinary Wednesday morning, everything ended. Emeka had left early for a site inspection in Ajay, a new residential complex his firm was working on. He had kissed Chioma goodbye, tousled Adiz's hair, tickled Chinedu until the boy squealed with laughter. "See you tonight, my love," he had said at the door. "I'm thinking chicken and chips for dinner." "You're always thinking about food," Chioma had teased, kissing him one more time. Those were the last words they ever exchanged. The call came at 11:47 a.m. Chioma was in the middle of taking a patient's blood pressure when her phone rang. An unknown number. Something made her step out to answer it. "Is this Mrs. Chioma Okafor?" "Yes, who is this?" "This is Dr. Adelik from Lagos State University Teaching Hospital. There's been an accident. Your husband, Emeka Okafor, I'm very sorry. He didn't make it." The phone slipped from Chioma's hand. She heard someone screaming, a terrible, animal sound of anguish. Only later did she realize the screams were coming from her. The accident had been sudden and brutal. A tanker had lost its brakes on the Ajay Expressway, plowing through traffic. Emeka's car had been directly in its path. The doctor said he died instantly, that he didn't suffer. As if that made it better. As if instant death was supposed to comfort her. The funeral was a blur. Chioma moved through it like a ghost, going through the motions because she had to, because 3-year-old Adiz kept asking, "Where is Daddy?" And 18-month-old Chinedu kept looking toward the door, waiting for a father who would never walk through it again. What came after the funeral was, in its own way, worse than the death itself. Emeka's family descended like vultures on fresh carrion. His 2 older brothers, his mother, cousins she had met only once or twice. They came with trucks and began systematically stripping her home of everything valuable. "What are you doing?" Chioma had asked, her voice hollow with shock. "Taking what belongs to our family." Emeka's eldest brother, Obi, said flatly, "This is my home. These are our things." "Your things." Emeka's mother, a woman who had barely visited them while Emeka was alive, laughed bitterly. "My son bought everything here. Now that he's gone, they return to his family. But the children are your responsibility." Obi cut her off. "You are young. You will remarry. But these properties belong to us." They took everything. The television, the furniture Emeka had saved months to buy, his clothes, his tools, the children's toys, even the generator. When Chioma tried to stop them from taking Emeka's laptop, which contained all their family photos, Obi shoved her aside so hard she fell. "Touch me again and see what will happen," he warned. They took the car. They took the money from his bank accounts. They even took the land documents for the plot in Lekki they had been saving for. When Chioma mentioned the life insurance policy Emeka had taken out, naming her as beneficiary, they laughed. "Insurance? In this Nigeria? Do you think we're fools? That money will take years to claim, if you ever get it. Meanwhile, we are taking what is ours now." In 3 days, they stripped her life bare. The flat was suddenly empty, echoing. The children cried, confused about where their toys had gone, why their home looked different. And Emeka's mother, as a final insult, told her, "You should be grateful we're leaving you the flat. Don't be greedy." Chioma had no strength left to fight. She was drowning in grief, trying to be strong for two small children who didn't understand why Daddy wasn't coming home. So she packed what little remained, mostly clothes and personal items they hadn't deemed valuable enough to take, and she did the only thing she could do. She went home to her mother. Returning to Surulere, to the cramped compound where she had grown up, felt like admitting defeat to life itself. Chioma stood at the rusty gate with Adiz clinging to her leg and Shinidu on her hip, surrounded by bags that contained everything they owned in the world, and she wanted to weep at the injustice of it all. Mama Nkechi opened the door and immediately pulled her daughter into her arms. No words, just the embrace of a mother who understood suffering intimately. That wordless comfort broke something in Chioma, and she finally allowed herself to cry properly, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from her very soul. But if Chioma thought returning home would provide refuge, she was tragically mistaken. Her family situation had somehow gotten worse in the years she'd been married. Her two older brothers, Chidi and Obinna, both in their late 30s, still lived at home. Chidi had a national diploma in business administration he'd earned over a decade ago and had never used for anything productive. He drank heavily, blamed everyone but himself for his failures, and contributed nothing to the household. Obinna was worse. He had dropped out of university twice, started and abandoned countless businesses that were really just schemes to extract money from Mom and Nkechi. Now, he spent his days playing video games at a local gaming shop and his nights clubbing with money no one knew where he got. Her younger sister, Ngozi at 28, had followed in their brother's footsteps. She worked sporadically as a hairdresser, but spent most of her time gossiping with friends and pursuing men who promised her a better life, but delivered only heartbreak and, on one occasion, a pregnancy she terminated with money borrowed from Mom and Nkechi. All three of them lived off their mother, a 70-year-old retired primary school teacher whose pension was a joke. The meager amount she received every month barely covered the electricity bill. Yet somehow she was expected to feed 6 adults and now 2 small children. The burden, as always, fell on the one person who had always carried it, Chioma. Within a week of moving home, Chioma was back at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, begging for her old position. They took her back, but with the understanding that she would work whatever shifts no one else wanted. Night shifts, weekend shifts, public holidays. Chioma took them all. But one nursing job couldn't feed 8 people. So she picked up a second job at a private clinic in Victoria Island. Then a third, doing home nursing for wealthy families in Ikoyi. She registered with an agency that provided medical personnel for events, parties, and weddings. She worked morning, afternoon, and night. She worked until her feet bled in her shoes. She worked until exhaustion became her permanent state. And still, it wasn't enough. Every kobo she earned went to keeping the household afloat. Food, electricity, water, medical care, school fees for Adiz who had started nursery school, diapers for Chinidu, clothes for the children because they grew so fast, medicine for Mama and Nkechi's blood pressure, and somehow, inexplicably, money for Chidi's drinking, Obinna's gambling, Ngozi's hair appointments at expensive salons. Why should we suffer because you chose to marry a man who died? Chidi would say when she complained, "You brought your problems here. You handle them." Caring for 2 small children while working multiple jobs was a nightmare. Adiz, now 3, needed constant attention. She had nightmares about her father. She would wake up screaming, "Daddy, Daddy," and Chioma would have to comfort her even when she herself was being torn apart by grief. Chinidu, not yet 2, was at that impossibly difficult age where he needed everything but could communicate nothing. He was always crying, always hungry, always needing to be held. And Chioma, no matter how much she loved him, sometimes felt like she was drowning. Mom and Nkechi helped when she could, but she was old and tired. Her body couldn't keep up with an active toddler. Her patience wore thin quickly. She tried, God knows she tried, but it wasn't enough. As for Chioma's siblings, they were worse than useless. They would promise to watch the children and then disappear. Ngozi would take Chioma's phone to chat with her boyfriends, leaving the children unattended. Obinna once forgot to feed them lunch because he was too engrossed in a football match. Chitty simply refused outright. "I didn't tell you to born children," he would say. "Handle your own problems." This was Chioma's life now. A grinding, relentless cycle of work, worry, and exhaustion. No joy, no hope, just survival, one brutal day at a time. Until one afternoon, everything changed. Chioma was in the hospital staff room, mechanically eating rice and stew during her 30-minute lunch break when her phone buzzed. Her old university WhatsApp group, which she usually ignored because seeing her classmates' successes only deepened her pain, was unusually active. One message caught her eye. It was from her former roommate, Blessing, who had moved to the United Kingdom 5 years ago. Urgent. My hospital in London is desperately recruiting Nigerian-trained nurses. Excellent package. They cover visa, flight, initial accommodation. If you're interested or know anyone who is, please DM me immediately. This is a genuine opportunity. Chioma stared at the message until the words blurred. London, the UK. A chance to earn real money. A chance to give her children the life Emeka had wanted for them. Her hand shook as she typed a private message to Blessing. The response came within minutes. Chioma, "Oh my God, how are you? I heard about Emeka. I'm so sorry. Listen, this job would change your life. The salary is incredible. You'd earn more in 1 month than you make in 6 months in Nigeria. Let me send you the application right now." That night, after the children were finally asleep, after Mom and Kechi had retired to her room, after her useless siblings had gone out to waste money they didn't have, Chioma sat at the rickety table and filled out the application. She attached her credentials. She wrote a cover letter that didn't quite capture the desperation she felt, but came close. She included reference letters from her supervisors. And then, hands trembling, she pressed send and prayed harder than she had ever prayed in her life. 3 weeks later, the email arrived. She had gotten the job. The opportunity was real. The salary was better than she had dared to hope. Everything would be covered. Visa fees, flight tickets, initial accommodation. It was an answer to prayers she had been too tired to properly pray. But there was one devastating condition. The visa was for her alone. The children could not come. Not yet. "Listen," Blessing explained gently over a scratchy phone call. "I know this is hard, but the system works like this. You go first, get established, work for 6 months to a year, then you apply for dependent visas. It's standard procedure. I did the same thing. It's painful, but it's temporary. Temporary. 6 months. Maybe a year. Could she do it? Could she leave Adiz and Chinidu?" She looked around the cramped room where they all slept together, looked at their worn clothes, listened to Chinidu's persistent cough that she couldn't afford proper medicine for, watched Adiz trying to do homework by candlelight because there was no money for electricity. This job was their ticket out. This job could give them everything. Education, healthcare, a future, but it required a sacrifice that felt like it would kill her. She discussed it with Mom and Kechi. "My daughter," her mother said, taking her hand. "This is a gift from God. Yes, it will be painful. Yes, you will miss them terribly. But think of their future. Go to London. Work hard. Save money. Then bring them. I will take care of them. They're my blood. But Mama, you're not strong enough. I will manage. I have raised 5 children. I can help raise 2 more. This is your chance, Chioma. Take it." The decision was made. Chioma would go to London. She would work harder than she had ever worked. She would save every penny. And in 6 months, maybe a year, she would bring her children to her. Just temporary. Just for a little while. Telling Adiz was the hardest thing Chioma had ever had to do. "Mommy has to go away for a while," she said, pulling her daughter onto her lap. "Where?" Adiz's eyes were already filling with tears. "To a place called London. It's very far away. But I'm going there to work, to make money, so I can give you and Chinidu a better life. I don't want a better life. I want you." The words shattered Chioma's heart into a million pieces. "I know, baby. I know. But this is important. And it's not forever. Just for a little while. And I'll call you every single day. I promise. Don't go, Mommy. Please don't go." But she had to. She had to because staying meant watching her children suffer. Staying meant never escaping the trap her life had become. The day she left for the airport, Chioma thought she might actually die from the pain of it. Adiz, now 3.5, wrapped herself around Chioma's leg and refused to let go, sobbing so hard she made herself sick. Chinedu, sensing the distress, screamed, "Mama! Mama!" his chubby arms reaching desperately. "I'll be back soon." Chioma lied through her tears. "Be good for Grandma. I love you so much." She had to physically pry Adiz's fingers from her clothes, had to hand both screaming children to her mother and force herself to walk away. Their cries followed her all the way to the taxi. Adiz desperate, "Mommy! Mommy! Come back!" Chinedu's heartbroken wailing. In the taxi, Chioma broke down completely. She cried so hard the driver asked if she was okay, if he should turn back. "No," she managed to say. "Keep going." As Lagos fell away beneath the plane, as Nigeria became just clouds and sky, Chioma made herself a promise. She would work harder than humanly possible. She would save every penny. She would do whatever it took to bring her children to her quickly. 6 months, maybe a year, then they would be together again. She had no idea that she would not see her children in person for 3 years. She had no idea of the horror they would endure in her absence. She had no idea that the family she trusted to care for them would betray her in ways she couldn't have imagined in her worst nightmares. London was cold. Not just the weather, though that was shockingly brutal, but the loneliness, the isolation, the feeling of being utterly adrift in a foreign place where she knew no one and everything was unfamiliar. But Chioma didn't have time to dwell on her feelings. She had children to bring over, a future to secure. St. Catherine's Hospital in East London became her entire world. She worked every shift they would give her. When other nurses complained about night duty, Chioma volunteered. Weekend shifts? She took them. Public holidays? She was there. "You're going to burn yourself out," her supervisor, a kind Jamaican woman named Marcia, warned her. "I can't afford to burn out," Chioma replied. "I have children waiting for me." She lived in the cheapest accommodation she could find, a tiny room in a shared house with 5 other people. She bought her clothes from charity shops. She ate the most basic, cheapest food possible. She never went out, never treated herself, never spent a single penny that wasn't absolutely necessary. And she sent everything, every pound she could spare, back to Lagos. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, she would transfer money to Mom and Ketchy's account. Money for food, money for clothes, money for Adiz's school fees, money for Chinedu's daycare, money for medical care, money for everything the children might need. "Mama, did you get the money?" she would ask during their video calls. "Yes, my daughter. I received it. The children are doing well. Can I see them?" And then Adiz and Chinedu would appear on the screen, and Chioma's heart would simultaneously soar and break. "Mommy," Adiz would shout, her face pressed close to the phone camera. "Manga." Chinedu would echo, though his pronunciation was still baby talk. "My babies, how are you? Are you eating well? Is Grandma taking good care of you?" "Yes, Mommy," Adiz would say, but something in her eyes always looked sad, haunted even. "Mommy, when are you coming home?" she would ask every single time. "Soon, baby. Very soon. Just a little bit longer." But soon kept getting pushed back. After 4 months of working herself to exhaustion, Chioma had saved a substantial amount. Her plan was to apply for the children's dependent visas and bring them over. But then Mama and Ketchy called with advice that seemed to make sense. "Chioma, my daughter, before you bring those children to the UK, you need to have something here in Nigeria. What if something happens? What if you lose your job? You need a foundation. You need to invest in property." "Property, Mama?" "Yes. Buy land. Build a house. Something that is yours, that nobody can take from you. After what Emeka's family did, you know you can't trust anyone. You need your own property." It made sense. After being stripped of everything by her in-laws, the idea of owning property, of having security that no one could take away was appealing. Maybe even necessary. "Othai, Mama, help me find good land." "I will, my daughter. Leave it to me." So Chioma changed her plan. Instead of bringing the children immediately, she would first invest in property in Nigeria, build a house, create security, then bring the children to a solid foundation. She started sending even more money home. Money for land, money for building materials, money for laborers, money for everything needed to construct a house. Mama, did you find the land? Yes, in a very good area in Lekki. Prime location. I've paid for it with the money you sent. Send me pictures, Mama. I want to see everything. And the pictures came. Photos of a cleared plot of land. Photos of foundation work beginning. Photos of blocks being laid, cement being poured, walls rising from the ground. Chioma would look at these photos late at night in her cold London room and feel warmth spread through her chest. This was her house, built with her sweat, her sacrifice, her love. This was her children's future. She worked even harder. She picked up agency work on her days off. She took on private nursing cases. There were days when she worked 20 hours straight, catching sleep in 15-minute intervals, surviving on coffee and sheer determination. Her body screamed in protest. She lost weight because she barely had time to eat properly. Dark circles became permanent fixtures under her eyes. Her co-workers worried about her openly now. Chioma, you're going to make yourself sick, Marcia said. When was the last time you had a proper rest? I'll rest when my children are with me, Chioma replied. Right now, I have to work. Every penny went home. For the house. For the children. For their future. Mama and Kechi sent regular updates. The house is progressing well. The walls are up now. Soon we'll start on the roof. Your children will be so proud. How are they, Mama? Really? They're fine. Adiz is doing well in school. Chinidu is growing so fast. They miss you, of course, but they understand you're working for them. The video calls came less frequently now. Sometimes Mama and Kechi would say the phone was broken. Sometimes she'd say the children were asleep. Sometimes she'd say the network was bad. When they did manage to video call, the conversations were brief, supervised, controlled. But the children looked okay, Chioma thought. They were wearing nice clothes. They looked fed. They said they were fine. So she pushed down the small voice in her head that whispered something was wrong. 2 years passed this way. 2 years of brutal work. Of bone-deep loneliness. Of missing her children's childhood. Adiz was now 5.5. Chinita was almost 4. Chioma had missed so much. First days of school. First lost teeth. First words spoken clearly. Milestone she could never get back. But the house was almost complete, Mom and Kechi assured her. Just a few more months of finishing touches. Paint, tiles, fixtures. They would be ready. After that, I can bring the children? Chioma asked hopefully. Of course, my daughter. Very soon now. Very soon. But very soon never came. Because while Chioma was working herself into exhaustion in London, while she was living on nothing and sending everything home, while she was sacrificing every part of herself for her children's future, her own family was betraying her in the most cruel, calculated way imaginable. The money for Adiz's school fees? There was no school. 5.5-year-old Adiz had never attended any school at all. She couldn't read, couldn't write, didn't know her ABCs or numbers. She spent her days sitting in the compound, watching other children in their uniforms, wondering why she couldn't go. The money for Chinidu's daycare? Pure fiction. The little boy, almost 4 now, had never seen the inside of any daycare. He spent his days hungry and crying, developmental milestones missed because no one cared enough to nurture him. The money for food? Mama and Kechi was using it to buy the most expensive fabrics in Lagos. Ankara, lace, Swiss voile. She had joined every women's association, every church group, every social club. She attended meetings dressed like royalty, while her grandchildren ate watery Gary without sugar. The money for clothes for the children? Mama and Kechi had bought herself gold jewelry, designer handbags, Italian shoes. She looked like a Lagos society woman, while Adiz and Chinita wore rags. And the house that Chioma was pouring her life into? There was no house. Every single photo Mom and Kechi had sent, every update about construction progress, every detail about walls and roofing and tiles, it was all lies. The photos were of a neighbor's house under construction. Mama and Kechi would wait until the workers left, sneak onto the property, take photos, and send them to Chioma with fabricated progress reports. Where had all that money gone? Mama and Kechi had bought herself a Honda CR-V. Not used, but fairly new, with leather seats, and a working air conditioner. She drove it everywhere, to church, to parties, to the market, basking in the admiration and envy of her neighbors. "Ah, Mama Nkechi, now you get this motor?" "Oh, she would say with false modesty. "My daughter in London is doing very well. She takes care of her mother." Chioma's brothers had hit the jackpot with their sister abroad. Chidi had opened a bar in Surulere, fully stocked with imported drinks, equipped with a big screen TV and comfortable chairs. He spent most days drinking his own stock with his friends, giving away free drinks, acting like a big man while the business slowly collapsed. Obinna had transformed himself into a Lagos playboy. Designer clothes, gold chains, expensive watches. He was now a regular at high-end clubs in Victoria Island, buying bottles for girls, living a life of luxury funded entirely by his sister's suffering. But the worst betrayal came from Gozi. When Gozi announced she wanted to get married, Mama Nkechi didn't hesitate. "Don't worry, my daughter. We will give you the wedding Lagos will never forget." And they did. Using Chioma's money meant for her children's education and care, money earned through blood and tears in London, they threw a wedding that became the talk of Surulere. The traditional wedding cost 8 million naira. They rented the biggest hall in the area, had a live band flown in from Calabar, printed invitation cards with gold embossing, bought the most expensive asoebi. Mama Nkechi herself wore lace worth 600,000 naira. The white wedding a month later was even more extravagant. A 10-tier cake from the most expensive bakery in Lekki. Luxury cars for the bridal train. Champagne imported from France. Food prepared by the best caterers in Lagos. Drone videography. A after-party that lasted until 4 a.m. People talked about Ngozi's wedding for months. That family has money, oh. See celebration. What nobody knew was that every kobo came from a woman destroying her health in London. A woman who thought her family was building her future while they were actually burning it for temporary pleasures. Meanwhile, the children for whom all this sacrifice was meant were living a nightmare. The nice clothes Chioma saw them wearing during the increasingly rare video calls. There was one outfit for Adiz and one for Chinidu, kept locked in Mama Nkechi's wardrobe, brought out only for calls. The moment the call ended, the clothes were stripped off and put back. The rest of the time, the children wore rags, clothes so worn and torn they were barely decent. They had no proper shoes. Adiz walked around in broken slippers 2 sizes too small. Chinidu was often barefoot, his feet covered in cuts and bruises. But the worst part, the absolutely worst part, was the hunger. They were always hungry. Desperately, painfully hungry. Mama Nkechi would cook elaborate meals for herself and her children, meat-filled soups, jollof rice, fried chicken. The grandchildren got the leftovers, if there were any. Sometimes just Gary with thin soup and no protein at all. Sometimes nothing. There were days when Mama Nkechi would go out to parties and completely forget to leave food. 5-year-old Adiz would have to go to neighbors, knock on their doors, and beg. "Please, Ma, we never chopped since yesterday." The neighbors would look at this tiny girl with her ribs showing through her torn dress, her eyes too large in her thin face, and they would feel a mixture of pity and rage. They knew. Everyone in the compound knew. They had seen Mama Nkechi driving her CRV, wearing expensive clothes, flashing gold jewelry while her grandchildren starved. They whispered about it, shook their heads in disgust. But who challenges a grandmother about her grandchildren? In Nigerian culture, elders are respected, even when they're wrong. Especially when they're wrong. So people watched and whispered and did nothing except for one person. Mrs. Adeyemi lived in the next compound. She was a retired nurse, a widow who had known Chioma since she was a little girl. She had wept at Chioma's wedding, mourned with her at Emeka's funeral, waved goodbye when she left for London. And now, watching those precious children suffer, watching them grow thin and hollow-eyed while their grandmother and uncles and aunt lived in luxury, Mrs. Adeyemi couldn't stay silent anymore. The problem was how to contact Chioma. Mama Nkechi guarded that information jealously, never mentioning the hospital where Chioma worked, never giving out her UK number or address. But Mrs. Adeyemi was determined. She would find Chioma. She would tell her the truth. She started with Facebook. It took her days of searching scrolling through hundreds of profiles. Her eyesight wasn't what it used to be, and technology wasn't her strength, but she was persistent. Finally, she found it. Chioma Okafor. Location, London, UK. Occupation, registered nurse at St. Catherine's Hospital. Mrs. Adeyemi's hands trembled as she typed out a message. Dear Chioma, this is Mrs. Adeyemi from Surulere. I am your mother's neighbor. I am writing to you with a heavy heart. Your children, Adiz and Chinedu, they're suffering terribly. They're not being cared for properly. What your family is telling you is not the truth. Please, I beg you in the name of God, come home and see for yourself. Your children need you desperately. May God guide you. Mrs. Adeyemi. She clicked send and prayed that Chioma would see it, would believe it, would come home. In London, Chioma was in the middle of a grueling 12-hour shift when her phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. She almost ignored it, too exhausted to care about social media. But something made her open it. She read Mrs. Adeyemi's message once, twice, 3 times. Your children are suffering. Her first instinct was denial. This was just gossip. Lagos people love drama, loved stirring trouble. Her mother sent updates regularly. The children looked fine in the video calls. This message was just malicious lies from a jealous neighbor. But her finger hovered over the delete button, and she couldn't press it. What if it's true? She showed the message to Marcia during their break. Look at this. Someone from home saying my children are suffering. It's nonsense, right? Marcia read it carefully, her face serious. Is it nonsense? When was the last time you actually went home? 2 years ago, but 2 years is a long time, love. And this woman, she's not some random person. She knows you, knows your family, and she cared enough to find you and warn you. But my mother sends photos. The children look fine. Do they? Marcia asked gently. Really? That night, Chioma couldn't sleep. She lay in her tiny room, staring at the ceiling, and forced herself to really think about the video calls. Really examine them. When had they started becoming less frequent? About a year ago. Why were they always so short, so controlled? Why did Mama and Kechi always stand right there during the calls? Why did the children's eyes look so haunted? And the house photos. She pulled them up on her phone and looked at them with fresh eyes. In 2 years of construction, the background never changed. The angle was always the same. There were never any workers visible, never any tools, never any signs of actual ongoing work. How had she not noticed this before? Because she didn't want to, she realized with sickening clarity. She didn't want to see the signs because seeing them meant confronting a truth too terrible to bear. By morning, her decision was made. She booked a flight to Lagos, departing in 3 days. She told no one. Not Mom and Kechi. Not her siblings. No one. She would arrive unannounced and see the truth for herself. The flight felt endless. Lagos, then a taxi to Surulere. With every kilometer that passed, Chioma's anxiety grew. What would she find? Was Mrs. Adeyemi right? Or was this all a terrible misunderstanding? The taxi turned onto her mother's street, and Chioma leaned forward, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. And then she saw them. 2 small figures sitting on the ground outside the compound gate, next to the gutter. One was a little girl in a dress so faded and torn it was barely recognizable as clothing. Her hair was unkempt, matted, sticking out in all directions. The other was a smaller boy, barefoot, in clothes held together with safety pins, clothes that were more holes than fabric. Both children were painfully, shockingly thin, their arms like sticks, their cheekbones sharp in their faces. They sat motionless, not playing, not talking, just existing with the blank expressions of children who had learned not to hope for anything. The taxi slowed, and the girl turned her head. For a moment, Chioma didn't recognize her own daughter. This hollow-eyed, skeletal child couldn't be her Adiz. But then their eyes met, and recognition flashed. Stop the car. Chioma screamed. Stop. She was out before the taxi fully stopped, running. Adiz. Chinedu. The children's faces transformed. Confusion, then disbelief, then pure joy. Mommy. Adiz screamed, scrambling to her feet. Mama. Mama. Chinedu shrieked, running on his bare, scarred feet. They collided with her, and Chioma fell to her knees on the dirty ground, pulling them into her arms. And that's when the full horror hit her. She could feel every rib through Ajay's torn dress. Chinedu was so light, so terrifyingly light. His arms around her neck were like twigs that might snap. "My babies," she sobbed. "What happened to you?" They were both crying, clutching at her clothes, her hair, her face, as if to convince themselves she was real. "You came back," Ajay kept saying through her tears. "Mommy, you really came back. I thought you forgot us." "Mama, mama, mama." Chinedu just repeated, his vocabulary limited, his speech delayed. Chioma pulled back to look at them properly, and what she saw broke her heart into pieces. Chinedu had a long scar on his forehead she'd never seen before. Both children had cuts and bruises on their arms and legs. Their lips were cracked. Their skin was ashy, uncared for. Their eyes held a sadness no child should ever know. "Where are your shoes?" she asked Chinedu, looking at his bare feet covered in fresh cuts. "They spoiled, Mommy." Ajay's answered for her brother. "Granny said there's no money for new ones." No money, when Chioma had sent thousands of pounds specifically for the children's needs. "The nice clothes I see you wearing when we video call." Ajay looked down, ashamed. "Granny only lets us wear them for the calls. Then we have to take them off and give them back. These," she gestured to her rags, "these are what we wear every day." The rage that filled Chioma was unlike anything she had ever felt. White-hot, all-consuming rage. She stood up, taking both children by the hands, and marched through the gate into the compound. There, parked prominently, was a Honda CR-V. Not old, well-maintained, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Her mother's car, bought with her money while her children went barefoot and hungry. Chioma pushed open the door to the flat and stopped dead. The living room had been completely transformed. New leather sofas, a massive flat-screen TV mounted on the wall, expensive speakers, new curtains, new everything. Obino was sprawled on the sofa, wearing designer clothes, gold chains glinting around his neck. He was scrolling through his phone, a bottle of expensive cognac on the table beside him. He looked up and his face went white. "Sister Chioma, why didn't you? Where's Mama?" Chioma's voice was deadly quiet. "She went to her women's meeting. She'll be back soon." "Sister, let me call her." "Don't bother." Chioma pulled out her phone and dialed. Mama Nkechi answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful. "Chioma, my daughter, how are you? Come home right now." "What? Why? Is everything okay?" "Come home. Now." The cheerfulness vanished. "I'm at an important meeting. I can't just. You have 10 minutes. After that, I start selling everything in this house to feed my children." Chioma hung up. She turned to her children. "Have you eaten today?" They shook their heads. "It's 4 p.m. and nobody has fed you?" "Granny went out early," Ajay said softly. "She didn't leave food." In the kitchen, Chioma found it well stocked. Rice, yams, meat in the freezer, but also expensive wines, imported chocolates, fancy biscuits, all the things Mama Nkechi enjoyed while claiming there was no money for the children. She cooked quickly, her hands shaking with rage. Rice and stew. She watched her children eat, and her heart broke all over again. They ate like they were starving, shoving food into their mouths, barely chewing. Chinedu ate so fast he choked. "Slowly, baby, slowly," Chioma had to keep saying. The food isn't going anywhere. But they couldn't slow down. Their bodies knew hunger too intimately. 20 minutes later, the Honda CR-V pulled into the compound. Chioma heard the door open, heard her mother's voice calling out with false brightness. "Chioma, where are you, my daughter?" Chioma walked into the living room. Mama Nkechi stood in the doorway, and Chioma finally saw her clearly. Her mother looked like a Lagos socialite. Expensive Ankara outfit that must have cost at least 50,000 naira. Gold jewelry, professional makeup, designer bake, imported shoes. Her hair was in an elaborate weave that cost thousands to install. This was the woman who claimed there was no money for her grandchildren's school fees. "Welcome home, my daughter," Mama Nkechi said, trying to smile. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I would have prepared." "Prepared what?" Chioma's voice was ice. "Prepared to hide how you've been treating my children." I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Chioma's control snapped. Look at them. Look at Adiz and Chinidu. Their skin and bones. They're in rags. Chinidu has no shoes. And you're standing there in designer clothes, driving a Honda CR-V, wearing gold. Chioma, you don't understand. Where's my house? Mama Nkechi's face went pale. What? The house. The house I've been sending money to build for 2 years. Where's it? Silence. Where is my house? There was a problem with the land. Stop lying. Chioma pulled out her phone, showing the construction photos. These aren't even photos of my land, are they? You've been sending me pictures of someone else's house. More silence. Where is it, Mama? Where's my house? There is no house, Mama Nkechi finally whispered. The room went deadly quiet. What? There is no house. I used the money for other things. Other things. Chioma looked around the transformed living room, looked at her mother's expensive outfit, looked through the window at the Honda CR-V. How much? Chioma, how much did you steal from me? Obina, from his position on the sofa, said quietly, about 35 million naira. The number hit Chioma like a physical blow. 35 million naira. Over 60,000 pounds. 2 years of killing herself in London. 2 years of living on nothing, eating nothing, sleeping nowhere decent. 2 years of missing her children's childhood. All gone. The car, she asked through numb lips. 12 million, Mama Nkechi whispered. Ngozi's wedding, 8 million. The furniture? Your clothes? Your jewelry? Maybe 15 million more. And my children's school fees? The money for their food, their clothes, their medical care? Mama Nkechi looked down. I used it. For what? For my things. For the family. The family. Chioma laughed, a sound with no humor in it. You mean for yourself? For Chitty's bar? For Obina's club life? For Ngozi's wedding? But not for the 2 innocent children I left in your care. Not for my babies who trusted you. They're fine. Fine. Chioma grabbed her mother's arm and dragged her to where Adiz and Chinidu sat, still eating, their eyes wide with fear. You call this fine? Look at them. Really look at them. For the first time, Mama Nkechi really looked. Looked at her grandchildren's skeletal frames, their haunted eyes, their torn clothes, their bare feet. And something in her face shifted. Shame? Regret? But it was too little, too late. Adiz, Chioma said gently, tell Grandma the truth. Have you been going to school? Adiz shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. Have you and Chinidu been eating well? No, Mommy. We're always hungry. Sometimes we don't eat for a whole day. What about the nice clothes I see you wearing when we talk? Granny only brings them out for video calls. Then she takes them away and locks them up. Mama nisfache kurumbled. Chioma, I can explain. Explain what? How you stole from your own daughter. How you let your grandchildren starve while you lived like a queen. What possible explanation could you have? I wanted to look respectable. People know you're abroad. They expect. You wanted to look respectable. Chioma repeated slowly. So you bought a car worth 12 million naira. While my children had no shoes. I was going to fix things. I was going to start sending them to school soon. Soon. When? After you bought yourself more gold? After you threw another wedding? My daughter is 5.5 years old, and she can't write her name. My son is almost 4, and he barely speaks. Do you know why? Because nobody talks to him. Nobody teaches him. Nobody cares. Chioma pulled out her phone and started making calls. First to a lawyer friend in Lagos. Then to the police. Then to child welfare services. What are you doing? Mama Nkechi asked, panic creeping into her voice. What I should have done 2 years ago. I'm documenting everything. The theft. The neglect. The abuse. Abuse? I never beat them. You starved them. You neglected them. You lied to their mother for 2 years while stealing the money meant for their care. That's abuse, Mama. That's criminal neglect. Within an hour, the flat was full of people. Chioma's lawyer friend, a stern woman named Amara, 2 police officers, a social worker, Mrs. Adeyemi, who had alerted Chioma, came as a witness. They photographed everything. The children's condition, the expensive furnishings, the car outside. They took statements. Mrs. Adeyemi testified about what she had witnessed. Other neighbors, emboldened by official presence, came forward with their own testimonies. I used to hear those children crying from hunger at night, one woman said. The girl would come to my door begging for food, another added. That woman would drive past her own grandchildren sitting in rags and not even stop, a third testified. By evening, the full picture was clear. Systematic theft, deliberate neglect, calculated deception, and through it all, Mama Nkechi had no defense except, I was going to fix it eventually. I want to press charges, Chioma told the police, for theft and child neglect. Chioma, please, Mama Nkechi begged. I'm your mother. You stopped being my mother the day you chose vanity over my children's welfare. But what will people say? The scandal. You care about scandal? Chioma's laugh was bitter. You drove around Lagos in a stolen car, wearing stolen gold, while your grandchildren begged for food. You created your own scandal. Now you'll face the consequences. The lawyer, Amara, pulled Chioma aside. You have a strong case. With the bank records, the witnesses, the children's condition, we can definitely pursue charges. But, she paused, it will be a long, public, painful process. Are you sure you want to put your children through that? Chioma looked at Adiz and Chinedu, huddled together on the sofa, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. They had been through so much already. Did they need to endure a court case too? What are my options? You could choose not to press charges. Instead, demand full restitution. Make her sell the car, the jewelry, everything she bought with your money. Use it to set up a proper life for your children. It won't get you everything back, but it will be faster, less traumatic for the children. Chioma thought about it, about the long court battle, about Adiz and Chinedu having to testify, having to relive their trauma, about the public nature of Nigerian court cases, how everyone would know their business, how people would gossip and judge. Fine, she said finally. No charges, but she sells everything. The car, the jewelry, the furniture. Everything goes. And I want a written, notarized statement of what she did. If she ever tries to contact my children again, I press charges immediately. Mama Nkechi sobbed with relief. Thank you, my daughter. Thank you. I'm not your daughter anymore. You're dead to me. All of you. She looked at Obinna, who had been silent throughout. Where are Chidi and Ngozi? Chidi is at his bar. Ngozi went to her husband's house. Good. Tell them both they're dead to me too. None of you are to contact me or my children ever again. If you do, I will press charges. I will make sure everyone in Lagos knows what you did. I will destroy what's left of your reputation. Do you understand? They nodded, too shocked to speak. That night, Chioma checked into a hotel with her children. A good hotel, with clean rooms and soft beds and hot showers. She bathed them gently, washing away years of neglect. She dressed them in new pajamas she bought from the hotel shop. She ordered room service, proper nutritious food, and watched them eat. Later, with both children clean and fed and tucked into the big hotel bed, Chioma sat beside them in the darkness and wept. Wept for the time lost, for the trauma they'd endured, for her own blindness, for the betrayal by people she'd trusted with her most precious treasures. Mommy, don't cry, Adiz whispered, reaching out to touch her face. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm so sorry I believed the lies. It's okay, Mommy. You're here now. That's what matters. Such wisdom from a 5-year-old who should never have had to be so wise. I promise you, Chioma said fiercely, holding both her children close. I will never leave you again. Never. From now on, wherever I go, you go. We're going to London, all 3 of us, and we're going to be a family. A real family. Forever. Chinedu asked, his vocabulary limited, but his meaning clear. Forever, my baby. Forever and ever. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Chioma worked with a fury born of righteous anger and maternal love. First, the legal documents. The lawyer, Amara, drew up papers that detailed every naira stolen, every lie told, every act of neglect. Mama Nkechi signed them, her hand shaking. Those documents would serve as protection, ensuring she could never deny what she'd done. Then came the liquidation. The Honda CR-V was sold. The gold jewelry, the designer clothes and bags, the expensive furniture, everything. The money, about 15 million naira in total, went straight into an account in Chioma's name only. It was less than half of what had been stolen, but it was something. While handling the legal matters, Chioma also focused on her children's immediate needs. Medical appointments revealed the full extent of their neglect. Both were severely malnourished. Adiz had developed anemia. Chinedu had a speech delay and was undersized for his age. They would need time, proper nutrition, and therapy to fully recover. But children are resilient, the pediatrician assured her. With love and care, they would heal. She also had to deal with the dependent visa applications. This time, there would be no delays. She contacted the British High Commission in Lagos, explained the situation, provided documentation of the neglect and abuse. The officials, sympathetic to the circumstances, expedited the process. 2 weeks. They would have the visas in 2 weeks. During this time, Mama Nkechi tried to see the children several times. Chioma refused every attempt. "Please, let me say goodbye," her mother begged through Mrs. Adeyemi, who served as an unwilling intermediary. She had 2 years to say goodbye. Chioma replied coldly. She chose to spend that time buying cars instead. Tell her she'll never see my children again. Her siblings tried too. Ngozi sent messages apologizing, claiming she didn't know the children were being neglected, begging for forgiveness. Chioma blocked her number. Obina showed up at the hotel. Security turned him away. Chidi called drunk, alternating between cursing her and crying. She hung up and blocked him too. They were all dead to her. Their betrayal was unforgivable. The day finally came when the visas were approved. Chioma booked 3 tickets to London. One way, they would never return to Lagos, except perhaps when her children were grown and healed, when they could visit as tourists rather than victims. On their last morning in Nigeria, Mrs. Adeyemi came to the hotel to say goodbye. "You're a good woman," Chioma told her, embracing her tightly. "You saved my children's lives. I can never repay that. You don't need to repay anything. Just love those babies. Give them the life they deserve." "I will. I promise." Mrs. Adeyemi knelt down to hug Adiz and Chinedu. "Be good for your mother, okay? Study hard. Eat well. And remember, not everyone is wicked. Some people still care." At the airport, as they went through security and immigration, Chioma felt the weight of 2 years of guilt and grief begin to lift. They were leaving. They were escaping. They were going home. Because home wasn't Nigeria anymore. Home wasn't a place. Home was wherever the 3 of them were together. On the plane, as Lagos disappeared beneath the clouds, Adiz looked out the window with wonder in her eyes. "Mommy, is London beautiful?" "Yes, baby. It's very beautiful. Different from here, but beautiful. Will we be happy there?" Chioma looked at her daughter's thin face, at the hope beginning to return to her eyes, and felt something she hadn't felt in so long. Genuine hope. "Yes, my love. We will be happy. It might take time. You'll both need to heal. You'll need to learn so many new things. But we'll be together, and we'll be safe, and eventually, yes, we'll be very happy. And you won't leave us again? Never. I will never leave you again. I promise." Chinedu, sitting on her other side, reached for her hand. "Mama stay." "Yes, baby. Mama stays. Forever." As the plane soared through the clouds toward their new life, Chioma made a silent vow. She would spend the rest of her life making up for the 2 years she'd been absent. She would give her children everything they deserved: love, security, education, opportunities, healing. The betrayal had been devastating. The theft was unforgivable. The lost time could never be recovered. But they had survived. They were together. And sometimes, survival itself is the greatest victory. She thought about forgiveness, about whether she would ever be able to forgive her mother and siblings. The anger was still too fresh, the wounds too deep. Maybe one day, years from now, when her children were thriving and whole, when the trauma had faded to distant memory, maybe then she could consider forgiveness. But not now. Perhaps not ever. For now, her priority was her children, their healing, their happiness, their future. Everything else could wait. 3 years later, Chioma sat in the garden of their small but comfortable house in East London, watching Ajay and Chinedu play. Ajay, now 8, was reading to her brother from a library book, her English accent making Chioma smile. Chinedu, almost 7, listened intently, his speech delay now just a memory. They had come so far. Ajay was thriving in school, top of her class in reading. Chinedu had caught up developmentally and was a happy, talkative little boy. Both were healthy, well-fed, secure. They still had nightmares sometimes. They still had moments when fear flickered in their eyes. But those moments were becoming rarer. They were healing. Chioma's phone buzzed. A WhatsApp message from an unknown Nigerian number. Her heart rate increased. Could it be? She opened it. Chioma, this is your mother. I am very sick. The doctor says I don't have much time. Please, I am begging you. Let me see my grandchildren one more time before I die. Please. I'm so sorry for everything. Please forgive me. Chioma stared at the message for a long moment. She felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. No guilt. Just emptiness. She thought about replying. Thought about explaining that forgiveness wasn't something you could demand on your deathbed after years of silence. That actions had consequences. That some betrayals were too deep to forgive. But in the end, she simply deleted the message and blocked the number. She wasn't interested in deathbed reconciliations or forced forgiveness. Her mother had made her choices. Now she would live and die with them. Chioma's choice was different. She chose her children, their peace, their healing, their future. She looked at Ajay and Chinedu, laughing in the sunshine, safe and loved and whole, and she knew she had made the right choice. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. Some betrayals are truly unforgivable. And that's okay, because sometimes protecting your children from toxic people, even if they're family, is the most loving thing a mother can do.